Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to say, how do we apply that slope and y-intercept to graphing? Well, the good thing is, the reason I do it this way is once you've learned slope-intercept, plot your y-intercept, rise over run, it's the same process. So you don't have to learn a new way. All you have to really do is learn how to find your slope and y-intercept. Okay, so again, we're going to have a graph labeled from -10 to 10. And what we're going to do as well is we're going to go ahead and write it at the end as y equals mx plus b. If we could find the slope, we could find the y-intercept, all we have to do is plug them in to get our equation. This is useful because a lot of times in algebra you're matching graphs and things like that, and instead of having to do a bunch of extra work, all you have to do is compare the slopes and y-intercepts. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to find our y-intercept, so we're going to substitute in x equals 0, which is going to give us 2y equals 12 or y equals 6. That tells us a couple things. It tells us that our y-intercept is at 6 on the axis. It also tells us that our b is going to be 6 down into the bottom. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plot my point. And I'm going to go ahead and update that down there as we go. It's okay, of course, to do it at the very end as well. Okay, now what we need is we need our slope. We've got our starting point. We've got that first point. We need our directions to get to the next point. So we're going to follow that process of saying what is opposite of A over B. Opposite of 3 is -3. B is 2. There's no simplifying necessary in a problem like this because it already is simplified. So all we're going to do is we're going to apply rise over run. We're going to go up 3 from our current point, and then we turn left and go 2. The reason we turn left is it's a negative. Okay, and this is the same as before. At that point now, you can go ahead and do the same thing again. Start from the original point, go down 3 and right 2 to make a graph have 3 points, but it's okay to use just 2. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my line, and I've completed it. The only thing I'm doing here is I'm also going to go ahead and plug in that -3 over 2 in for m, which gives me -3 over 2x plus 6. That means that we have two equivalent things. We have this one here and this one here, and they are the same. They're equal. So the useful thing in that is that will tell you information for later on in the class if you want to determine if they have no solution or infinitely many. Also, when you're trying to figure out if two things are parallel or perpendicular, that is also a really useful tool to have, is to be able to detect the slope even if it's not in y equals form. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and label a graph from -10 to 10 on your graph paper, and I want you to follow the process and see if you guys can come up with a slope and y-intercept and graph this line. So I want you to pause the program, and when you are finished, hit play.
Are you actually talking to your student?
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, I'm going to label this down at the bottom. You can fill it in as you go, but I do want you to go ahead and write it out that way so you can practice that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to eliminate the x by plugging in 0. That is going to give us -5y equals -15, so y equals 3. I'm going to put that 3 up here on my graph, and I'm going to label it down at the bottom. Okay, the next piece of information I need is the slope. I know my slope is opposite of A. Remembering that this is A. Let me use a better pen there. This is A, so I want the opposite of that, which would be -5, and then B is already -5. A lot of people forget that negative sign, so be careful. So -5 over -5, which of course simplifies out to 1 over 1. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go up 1, and then right 1, put my point, and draw my line. And I'm done. You'll notice as well that I did, in fact, label that 1x down there. Remember I said this earlier. You don't have to write it as 1 over 1 if it is a whole number, but when we talk about slope, we want to think of slope as a fraction at all times. Okay, so another example coming up here. Go ahead, again, label from 1 to 10. Sorry, from -10 to 10. And go ahead and pause the program and give it a try. Okay, so hopefully you gave it a try. First thing we're going to do, eliminate x, which is going to give me -10y equals 10. Again, covering it up with your hand is something that a lot of people do, but you can write it out. And some teachers will require you to show every single step. Now you're going to divide negative 10 on both sides and get y equals negative 1. That tells me two pieces of information. It tells me my negative 1 in my graph, which obviously could also be written as a minus 1 instead of a plus negative 1. And I'm going to plot that point on my graph. You probably have noticed already, I didn't label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just went by 2s. It is not okay to leave a blank graph completely because then I don't know what your numbers are, but you don't necessarily have to write every single number. Some people do 5, 10, like that. Some people will label the 1 and the 10. You need to tell me what the scale of your graph is. Okay, because my A is 2, opposite of A is negative 2. Because my B is negative 10, I just write negative 2 over negative 10. Once I go ahead and simplify that, the negatives will cancel out, and I'm going to get 1/5, which means I go up 1 and right 5. Okay, again, I'm going up and right because I want a line that is uphill, meaning if I'm walking left to right, if I'm walking that direction, and I'm a little guy walking, I want to imagine myself walking uphill. Okay, and that's definitely uphill. It's not a huge hill. That's why it's a fraction like that, but it's definitely uphill. Okay, if I'm walking downhill, it would be very obvious when you do this. Okay, once again, we're going to try one more. So go ahead and pause the program. Again, the graph should fit on a 1 to 10 graph. And when you are finished, hit play and we'll check your answer. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and figure out our y-intercept by plugging in 0 for x. I'm going to get negative 4y equals 24, so y would equal negative 6. I can go ahead now and label that down below, as well as label it on my axis. Okay, I need my rise over run. I need my directions to the next point, so I'm going to employ my method. I'm going to take the opposite of negative 12, which is positive 12, and then I have my b, which is right here, so negative 4. Okay, so opposite of negative 12 is positive 12. Positive 12 over negative 4 is equal to negative 3 over 1. This goes back to what I said before. Write the negative sign on top just for standard form. When I write it in my equation, I'm fine to just leave that off. Okay, so I'm going up and left this time. Okay, again, the reason for that, if we think about the little guy walking, if he's walking left to right, if he's walking that way, he's definitely walking downhill. He might fall down this hill. It's pretty darn steep. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and write that negative 3 in there. The reason for that, we don't write it over the 1, again, is equations don't have that 1. We just need to remember it for our rise over run. Okay, so what I want you guys to do now is fill out the form.